Before we begin, we light a candle for one of you, our kith and kin out there listening. When called on, we hold space for a voice, a story, or a name, so that no ember burns alone.
This week, the candle is for our dear friend and co-host, Lydian, who is not present with us today. Love you, Lydian.
Know that you are seen, and that your voice is part of ours. A flame is lit, your fire is carried. We remember you. Welcome back to the Ember Report, where lanterns are raised and headlines fuel hexes.
I'm Len, the Witch of the Crossroads.
And I'm Sebastian, the Sorcerer of Annihilation.
Here is where we raise the lantern for the exiles.
Keep the tea hot for the queers, the cunning folk, and the activists who never fit the mold.
Come on in, family.
The fire is kindled. The Sabbath begins now. Well, welcome back to today's episode. Today we are missing two people. Matthew Venus, if you're listening, we miss you and hope we can get you on the show soon. And our wonderful co-host Lydian, who with their current events in their life had to step away just for a family emergency. But with that being said, we are here today, your co-host Sebastian and Len, and we will be handling the show today. So we know we're your favorites, and so that you're all going to stay and listen all the way through to the end. But with that being said, we need to talk to you about some news stories this week. Len?
So our first story, a University of Oklahoma instructor is on leave after failing a Bible-based essay asserting belief in multiple genders as, quote, demonic. So this instructor has been placed on leave after a student complained about a failing grade she got in a paper that cited the Bible to assert that, quote, belief in multiple genders was demonic. So the student, 20-year-old Samantha Folnecki, of course, filed a complaint of discrimination to the university, to which the university wrote in an email saying, OU remains firmly committed to fairness, respect, and protecting every student's right to express sincerely held religious beliefs. The school also said that the failing grade, which was supposed to account for 3% of her final grade, would not affect the junior's academic standing. The essay was for a psychology class about lifespan development, in which students were asked to write a 650-word response to an academic study that examined whether conformity with gender norms was associated with popularity or bullying among middle school students. I bet you can guess where this is going. And in an interview with KWTV, Samantha Volnecki said that she thinks she deserved a perfect score. I'm just going to share a direct quote from her essay really quick. Quote, society pushing the lie that there are multiple genders and everyone should be whatever they want to be is demonic and severely harms American youth. She also argued that promoting the belief in multiple genders would lead society to, quote, move further from God's original plan for humans. We're seeing that this is much bigger than just this one incident. There was a professor at Texas A&M who was fired earlier this year after a video where a student confronted the instructor over her teaching of issues related to gender identity in a class on children's literature went viral. Since Trump has taken office, we're seeing that student affinity groups have shuttered campus offices and professors have altered curriculums. Trump has also threatened federal funding for schools who don't comply with standards for teaching admissions and gender in sports supported by the administration. Both supporters and opponents of the Trump admin's campaign say that freedom of speech is at stake. All right, Sebastian, what do you think?
Mm. So, listeners, this is for those of you who need something to go do. You go take this name, Samantha Folnecki, and do with it what you will. God, I'm gonna have so much fun with this name. Fuck her.
Yep.
Fuck these bitches who are doing this shit. And bitch, I just know this bitch has a big ass forehead. I can tell. Like, girl, receding hairline, please. But the fuck is wrong with people? This is ridiculous. This is actually something that we see quite a bit, uh, especially in the South. And quite frankly, uh, I think it's also a shame that we don't see that her any point in which her fellow students tried to stand up for the fact that this was like a horrible thing to try and like turn in and like make like a situation like, bitch, you were in the wrong, and that's why you failed. um Listen, it's I've been in a situation where actually it was reversed. So I studied at the University of the Incarnate Word, and I you are forced to take a religious class, and I took a world religions course, and obviously thinking that it was going to be about the different religions around the world. Um, can we guess what happened?
It wasn't that.
It was it wasn't that. It was a class on Christianity and Catholicism's view on other religions and other concepts
Of course it was.
in the world.
Oh, that's stupid.
And I was pissed. What the fuck do you mean this is what we're doing? And then at one point, I was asked to write an essay response to a article that basically said that eating disorders were due to sin, and someone
What
being
the
sinful is why
fuck?
they had an eating disorder. I went off. I wrote an entire essay, not on a response to it, but on how this is ridiculous. How could you, as a educational institution, allow for this to occur? Like, I wrote a whole I want to say it was like 8 pages of like basically saying like, this is ridiculous. What is wrong with you? People are out here actually like dying or extremely sick, or it's self-harm, and it is a disease, and you are out here saying that it's because they're sinful. And my best friend at the time uh, had suffered with an eating disorder, so I was enraged.
Mm-hmm.
And so I took this, and it ended up going to the dean, and the university sided with the professor, saying that the professor did their job. This was well within the means of their class curriculum and what they were allowed to do, and there was nothing. They saw nothing wrong with the situation at hand. The so friendly reminder: fuck the University of the Incarnate Word in San Antonio, Texas, um, specifically. Um, but this is something that I definitely listen. For our listeners, you hear us talk about, like sorcerous things to do, and quite frankly, when it comes to situations like this, it is really great because they're not someone who's super big and well protected, and their name is given to us as well as photos of them multiple times. So this makes working them very, very easy. So this is a moment in which I would say go grab your photos, go take their name now that their name is public, do a quick Google search and look up their birthday, um, look up their birth chart, if you will. Take that, work it. Fuck their shit up. Fuck their shit up.
I don't know if you saw it, but I just shared. Okay, no, I just got the message that it delivered. I sent you a picture, Sebastian, of what she looks like.
Yep, big ass forehead.
Big ass fucking forehead.
Big ass forehead, eyes too far apart on her fucking skull. Yeah. Girl, you think God's original plan for humans was inbreeding?
Oh my god, she is wild. Also, I do have a link to her full essay. Not that I wanted like anyone else to read it, but if you're curious and just want to read the bullshittery, dumb fucking shit that she wrote, let me know. I'll send it to you. Anyway,
Yeah, we can actually drop that in our show notes for our listeners who want to use that because guess what, listeners? That is her own writing. Might as well be her own signature to do with what you will.
perf. Oh, did we want to move on to the next thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
let's first of all cut that and then
Anyway,
give me 1 second and then I'm gonna say something really quick.
okay.
And with that being said, let's go ahead and move on to the next story, Len. What do we have?
Our second story is Republican Matt. um, this is Tennessee's fucking shit. It's I'm sorry. It is a day. Hold on. I'm so sorry, Lydian. Let's continue. Republican Matt Van Epps won the election for Tennessee's 7th congressional district against Democratic State Rep Afton Ben. Van Epps easily won the October special primary against 10 opponents with Trump's endorsement. Ben, first elected to the state house in a 2023 special election, has been described by some state Democrats as our very own AOC of Tennessee. Of course, a reference to Democratic Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York. Abi Rahman, a deputy communications director at the DNC, was quoted as having said, win or lose, Republicans have been forced to spend millions, deploy resources, and put out all of the stops to try to have a seat in a district that Trump won by 22 points. So they're like, it's a loss, but also it moved over in our direction a little bit. Just a smidge.
Just a tiny, tiny bit. But with that being said, I do think is a good point to remember that like when somebody moves into a new spot, their spot is still taking root. So start working their office assistants, start working uh, their employees, the ones closest to them. These are things for our listeners over in Tennessee, but you also don't have to be in Tennessee to work this. But again, start working these people. This is not something to just leave and be like, well, it's not great, but it is kind of in our direction a little bit. So that's fantastic. But with that being said, like we do need to ensure that this is actually going to be in our favor, even if it is really small, right? Like we have seen time and time again that a politician may seem like they are in our favor and then they are not. And with someone like this, it's already bad enough that they're a Republican. And so I think for that, we do need to just be mindful that even though some Democrats are saying that they are their very own AOC of Tennessee, I take that with a heavy grain of salt, maybe a whole container of salt, maybe a few gallons. So just keep that in mind. This is something to keep in mind just when we are deploying our own work in order to ensure things are going ways that we need them to go.
You had said something just a second ago. You said that with this new person, they are establishing roots, salt the earth so that they can't make them fail in all of their endeavors, make it to where nothing succeeds or nothing is able to survive for long. Do that. Fuck them up.
No, that's fantastic. Remember, listeners, we kind of talked about it last episode, and we're actually going to talk about it some more after we're done with the news. Is like the concept of spirits, but also that people are spirits, right? They're just spirits within a container made of flesh. But you can still work them just as you would work any other spirit, and salting the earth beneath them, giving them root rot. There is multiple concepts if you work with the witch's devil kind of destroying crops from underneath, because the roots reach to hell. And the devil takes the crops. Is like also things a concept to work. I'm not always going to walk you through step by step. Sometimes you guys have to figure it out yourselves. But with that being the case, I think it is a good reference to definitely keep in mind, like, this person is new, right? So there are a lot of new things that are happening, right? You can do a road closer still. You could do a lot of things to, again, this is the ideal point to start applying pressure instead of later, when they're not stable, and applying pressure can really cause someone to fall.
I think someone should go to where his office is and salt it. Like literally put salt in front of the door, or around the whole building. Do something like that. As you were talking, I'm like, yes, do this, do all that. Anyway.
If you took a certain pentacle of Saturn and burned it in this with the salt, and mixed the ashes together, and then go put that around the place, that would work wonders for you out there in Tennessee, specifically a certain one related to earthquakes. You go figure that out. To destabilize, while it's also salting the earth beneath their feet, is another good way to do it. Yeah.
Oh, call back to your first episode. You mentioned that in the Alligator Alcatraz episode. I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Go back and listen.
Listen to all the episodes all over again. You should be.
Yes.
They're great episodes. But we digress. Let's move on to the next one then.
As always, we continue to name the ongoing genocide in Gaza. Israel's genocide in Gaza has not stopped despite the supposed ceasefire. On October 10th, a ceasefire was supposed to have put an end to Israel's genocidal war on Gaza, but 2 months on, Israel has violated the ceasefire more than 500 times, killing at least 356 Palestinians and sending the total death toll in Gaza to about 70,000. Netanyahu has made his position clear, saying that the war has, quote, not ended. Muhammad Shaheda, a visiting fellow with the Middle East and North Africa program at the European Council on Foreign Relations, told Al Jazeera, if you break genocide down to its essence, it's not only mass killing, it is also destroying the population's ability to exist together as a group, and that is being achieved by the mass destruction of infrastructure, the killing, ethnic cleansing, and starvation. We've said this before on the show, but now analysts say that instead of coming as a reprieve for Palestinians, the ceasefire gave the international community an excuse to stop focusing on Israel's actions in Gaza. Shahada went on to say, it's theater because everyone was fed up with the genocide and keen for it to disappear and not solve it, and that's exactly what we've seen. Defense analyst Hamza Yattar told Al Jazeera, Israel is continuing its genocide in Gaza, but its pace is different. The destruction on the houses is continuing, and the killing of Palestinians is continuing, and the Israeli yellow line of occupation in the Gaza Strip is part of the genocide. The genocide is not only about killing people, but about restricting people from going back to their homes and creating a new reality in the Gaza Strip. And finally, Elia Ayub, a Lebanese-Palestinian researcher and writer, said, it confirms what we already knew, that the goal is not to defeat an armed enemy, Hamas, but to make sure that life itself cannot be sustained in Gaza in the long term. It is simply genocide.
I think the witch's verdict is clear on this, as it always is. This is a crime against humanity. I'm sorry. To the global cause here, what the fuck? 500 times it's been broken and no one's done anything. No one's going to call them out. No one's going to say, hey, this is wrong. This is not something that is allowed. And what we're just going to come on. There are such bigger countries than fucking Israel, and no one's going to do anything. And as like they said, like it really was just an opportunity for people to brush it under the rug, essentially. Like they were like, oh, well, they said they're gonna do a ceasefire, so I can now look away, even though they break it over and over 500 fucking times. Is an insane number. The fact that it's reached that point and no one has done anything is insane. So, to our listeners, this is where we take a global approach to it, right? You should be working solar work on this, so that way it's still being seen by the greater masses. So take that as you will, just like solar category work of sovereignty and importance and dominion and like visibility. You can work Saturnian work in the way of like Saturn is like, look, this is something that is going to affect everyone. Saturn is also about like harvest and like those things. So it's like death and decay as well. So it's like, okay, we need to bring attention to these things, bring them to the forefront. I think what I would do too is like some kind of work to basically force people's heads to look at this. Like people are now trying to just be like, well, no, it's not, it doesn't include me. I'm gonna look away. I'm gonna look over there. Now that they said that they're gonna do a ceasefire, no, grab their heads and pin them in the direction of Gaza, of this genocide. And to do that, kind of like we said, right? Listen, the people at the UN also have people who work for them, okay? The people who are in charge of keeping things under wraps or not addressing things also have people who work for them. This is where we talked about taking your news reporters. And what I would do is take a multiple news reporters, or just the concept of news reporters in general. Like you can just take the spirit of news reporters and like do like a puppet, and you will feed that puppet like just the genocide in Gaza and Palestine, and you just feed it that, like shoving it down its mouth literally, so that way those are the words that are in it, the reporters' mouths, so that way that's something that's being addressed in the news, is something definitely to take into consideration. I would do things like any herbs that like resemble a tongue. I would work those too to make sure that the words that you want are being said.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a reason why these IDF soldiers, the Israeli military, in all of their identification, they're facing away from the camera. Like their faces aren't even showing. They know what they're doing, they're aware of it. They're just trying to twist the narrative to, like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, or like it's only them, they're to blame, when we have seen evidence that that's not true. Like we are seeing for a fact that that's not true. Hurt them, kill them. Yes.
Drive them insane. This isn't a mercy killing. This is where I say you take that puppet and you torture the fuck out of it. You light parts of it on fire. You remove limbs. You do horrible, horrible things to it, and fill it with horrible things, rusted nails, gunpowder. You work the fuck out of this. If you are okay working with poisonous plants, you take those things, and you work these spirits into them. As we all know, I love to drive people insane. Am I using certain work to basically make one of the Israeli soldiers go insane and accidentally start killing their comrades? Oopsie, not sorry. The whispers are loud, and we are the ones whispering in their ears. So make sure that you drive them crazy and destroy them from the inside out. Really, really, listen, we can do our parts. some of us will bring visibility, some of us will bring remembrance to it, some of us will uh, be protectors of the people of Palestine, and some of us will be right there on the front lines, making sure that these people face the wrath of the crimes they're committing against humanity as a whole, because this isn't just, oh, this is just a crime against Palestine. No, this is a crime against humanity. This is a crime against all of us. And the fact that nobody wants to do anything means that this crime is happening to all of us because it is being allowed to happen.
In 2 months, 356 people. 2 months. Like, that's like, it'll be 2 months and 3 days from now. It's ridiculous.
356.
That at least 356.
That's crazy. I mean, just the number of it being broken 500 times is an insane number to me. This is insane, and I just don't understand how, like, on a global scale, this has just been swept under the rug because, oh, well, I mean, officially they said they're going to do a ceasefire, so that's all we really care about. They can continue to do whatever they want after. It is insane because it's like, okay, so there's no repercussions for breaking a ceasefire, and the fact that you've let it get to 500 is insane.
Mm-hmm.
It's unacceptable as a global community. 500 times and we're just going to look the other way is insane to me. Well, listeners, that's that. That's it. That's the show. We're done. No.
Okay, bye-bye now.
Bye. No, we have a lot to talk about still. The news that we had today was a lot. With that being said, when we're looking at planetary concepts with the way things are moving, we do have quite a few different things that can be addressing towards this. We talk about the um, let's see. So like we had Mars in Sagittarius trining Chiron, and that was on Friday, the 5th of December. And so that is a good position there, but it's also like, hey, they're both why can't I think right now? Centaur. One is, of course, the teacher, and Sagittarius being in Mars is like a little more aggressive. So it's like what lessons are being learned in the in aggressive, not aggressive, in a more direct kind of way with more action. What is being addressed there? What needs to be happening? Something is occurring that is going to be a lesson, and that lesson needs to be learned. It's not a type of lesson you can try and ignore. And then Saturday, the 6th, we had Mercury in Scorpio trining Jupiter in Cancer. And this is something as well. With that being said, with Jupiter in Cancer, that is a very auspicious placement. We see that in like the Pentacles of Solomon, like the fourth pentacle of Jupiter, I believe, can only be made when Jupiter is in Cancer. So this is like a really good time for that. With Mercury in Scorpio and Jupiter, this is like a trine as well. So this is a support. This is referring back to like the political aspect, in my opinion, of like, okay, Jupiter is like sovereignty. It's also like politicians because of their sovereignty over people and their position of dominion and authority. But with Mercury and Scorpio, it's like, okay, things are moving in a way, and for some reason, they're inherently kind of secretive. They're inherently these kind of blunt aspects of like, okay, I'm going to say the truth, but in the way that like the truth can be manipulated. So like people, like if you were to ask somebody and they were like, well, technically I didn't lie, but technically I didn't give you the full truth either, is where I kind of feel that we need to be mindful of this whole like thing in Tennessee and certain people in certain places politically, because the next day or today, the 7th, Mercury and Scorpio trine Saturn, right? So now we have um, a different placement, a different sovereignty, a different big, heavy presence. Now Mercury and Scorpio and Saturn, right? So it's like, okay, things are definitely being manipulated in certain ways in favor of certain aspects. But what people need to understand is that even if they are trying to manipulate things against the people. The Saturn placements for the next few days, actually, the rest of the month seem very beneficial towards like Saturn kind of being like, you can try and be sneaky and try and be doing things under the table that will harm your constituents or that will harm the people of America. But Saturn's going to come out and showcase a lot because we have so today, Mercury and Scorpio trine Saturn, and then Mars square Saturn tomorrow, the 8th, and then we have the Sun square Saturn on the 16th, and then we have Venus square Saturn on the 20th, and then we have Mercury square Saturn on the 30th. So it's a lot happening in regards to Saturn and the rest of the planets here. So it's like taking its course through different placements here. And then we do have Neptune turning direct in the 12th house on the 10th of December. So those of you who work dreams can really get a lot out of this as well. Uranus and Neptune, in my personal experience, both kind of have dream aspects. Some people will say Uranus more, some people will say Neptune more. I find Neptune just because it's like a watery planet, and dreams are like more water aligned. Is something to definitely take into consideration, because then we have Mercury trine Neptune. So for our astral girlies and our dreamscape girlies, the 11th of December would be a great time to do some dream work or manipulate people's dreams or get messages in dreams. So, like, if you are wanting to have politicians reveal their true nature, seep into their dreams on the 11th and do work that way, because you already have like the planetary support in your favor for that, or doing like divination that way to get information would be really great in that regard. Because also we have Mercury in Sagittarius in the 9th house that day. So it's very about like revealing the truth, because Mercury in Sagittarius is like, I don't know how to not say the truth, even if it hurts you. And it sounds like I'm being an asshole about the truth. But even if you didn't ask me, I'm going to say it anyway, kind of thing. That is something present there as well. With that being said, to these are definitely situations to take into consideration planetarily right now, but also when we're talking about like the Mars placements, these are things too that are talking about like direct action, right? So what are you doing to create direct action against politicians, against things like that? So kind of all the concepts that we've talked about of like, okay, make people do something is that Mars aspect, right? Because people are doing fucked up shit, and we need to do have action actually happen against these people who are doing fucked up shit, right? That is where we bring that into consideration, right? So we've already have talked about like there are placements that are like talking about communication, talking about travel, talking about politics, but talking about also now moving more into heavy Mars. So we're moving away from like Mercury and more into like heavy Martial placement. So it's like, okay, direct action, what needs to get done, what is going to be the direction that we're moving into, are we changing directions, are also kind of placements that I'm seeing that are being brought up. And with the collective as a whole, because Neptune is like a planet that rules over larger groups of people. It's not like the inner planets where it's more like individual. Most of the time with like Neptune, it's like bigger groups, the collective, if you will. With it coming direct, it's more people realizing and kind of waking up and being like, oh, yeah, no, I cannot be having this kind of mindset, or like I'm having a new type of mindset that's in favor of the people. So these are kind of just concepts that I'm realizing with like looking at planetary transits, if you will.
Fascinating. Thank you. Thank you. I love the weather report.
So, speaking of astrology and the stars and the planets, um, listeners, we've talked before about spirits, and we've talked a lot about them. The spirits are very important in a practice, especially with practices that look like mind and lens. Um, these kind of concepts are really important. I teach this in my course about like working with spirits, the importance of spirits. Um, for our listeners who aren't on the Patreon, like I've talked about like the importance of mediumship. I'm actually posting a class on our Patreon for our listeners who are supporting on Patreon of a full um, kind of master class, if you will, on mediumship. But with that being said, the concept here of like working astrological spirits, of working planetary spirits, working charts as spirits is something to take into consideration, considering that there are some really benefic transits and whatnot happening. You've heard me time and time and again, and I will never stop saying it. You're probably going to have in your library a copy of the Key of Solomon. The lesser key has the Pentacles of Solomon, the planetary ones. Work those. They work wonders, and they're easy for the most part. Um, I think just working spirits in general is like a really good way to approach political magic, but also just magic in general. But with that being said, like I think we talk about this concept of like spirits and spirits this, spirits that, but I think we kind of need to step back a little bit, Len, and tell us a little bit about like spirits in general as a concept, so we can kind of make sure our listeners are on the same page.
What, like, you're asking me to define a spirit?
Like what?
Girl.
Yeah, right. Which is like so funny because it's like the more you try and define a spirit, the less it will confine itself to that definition. Um,
You thought.
he said, "Oh, you're gonna put me in a box? Well, now I'm a triangle. So good luck." And it really, yeah. So I guess it's more like, okay, what do we mean by working spirits? What do we mean by working with spirits? What is a spirit in a more broad concept? Where do they come from even? So like this is where we get like really into the nitty gritty of like spirit work in that regard.
It depends on the cosmology and the tradition, but engaging with spirits is very similar across traditions. It's um, the concept of fuck.
Yeah,
I don't
no,
know where to
it's
go
like
from here. I'm
very,
sorry.
it's very, it comes from like a very animistic approach, right? So we see this in multiple cultures in various ways. They might use different words, different definitions, but we still see the same concept of like there are other things that exist other than humans, some of which were never human, some of which were human and now aren't. Some of them are plant spirits, star planetary spirits, spirits of elements. Um, the concept of a spirit is a very broad umbrella term where it's like these entities, these beings that exist outside of uh, like a more human concept, but that does not limit humans from being included under the category of spirit. And so I think with that, you can see that spirits can exist from before humanity, spirits can exist from the birth of consciousness. You can create spirits from scratch, you can fuse spirits together, you can work with spirits, you can command them, you can bind spirits. These are all different things. Like literally, this is like something that goes on and on and on and on. There's like 3 or 4 classes that I teach on it in order to really get the concept across to my students. So when you hear us talking about spirits, it can be a little much because it's like, okay, even if all cultures talk about spirits, the way that we address them is going to be different, right? For example, is it going to be talking about infernal spirits? Is it going to be talking about the kind of concept of subversive spirits? Are we talking more celestial spirits? Are we talking planetary? Again, like I'm kind of going in circles, but it really is hard to really set definition to spirits because like spirits don't like to be defined in a way that like you'll see that some spirits will actually literally change. If you're like, oh, I now see that you look like this and you do this, so you must be this, and then they'll be like, whoa, actually I'm going to change because I'm not meant to be understood like that. And you can see that happen with different types of spirits as well. Spirits are super important in my practice, working them in various ways, birthing them, and housing them in various aspects as well. This is something that there are a number of books on. So we've talked about consorting with spirits before, but the book, but we also should address a wonderful book that just got released recently by Matthew Venus, who will be on the show later in the season, called The Art of, or the, oh my God, my poor
Ensoling the Effigy.
ass, yes. Ensoling the Effigy, which is fantastic. I am about halfway through it now. Wonderful book. I highly recommend it. It's very approachable for all levels of practice, as it kind of sets you up in the beginning half for like what it is that you will be doing in the book, what you're kind of expected to experience, different kind of definitions and stuff like that. But it is really cool to see, like, for example, the types of spirits that kind of come across different cultures. We talk about how like all cultures have like spirits. Well, one that's like really popular is like the concept of little people, or like duendes. We see that. We see the creation of spirits and with duendes as well. We see the creation with other types of spirits across cultures, and the lines can blur because we can see like concepts of this in Europe. We can see concepts of this in the Middle East. Sometimes those lines blur too with like in folklore, like the Fae and other types of spirits. And then we see that in the Middle East, it blends over with like spirits of certain types of jinn, and that blends over. And then that goes over into East Asia, just Asia, and like different types of concepts there. So like some Oni also fall under this category, and then we see other types of spirits in Taoist folklore that also kind of talk about this. So it's like these spirits can have similarity across culture, but there is like some really big differences with them across the board as well.
Yes. You said a lot of what I was going to say because you had said define spirits and then you started talking about all this other stuff. So I was like, hold on.
Interrupt me.
But yes, I like, it's fascinating the way that we engage with spirits, depending on the cosmology. Like if you're more traditionally witchcraft aligned or leaning, then the concept of the 3 souls. So when you, depending on what you're wanting to make and how you're wanting to go about doing it, like there's a process to create what is almost like a duende, and you physically craft its flesh, its body. You and over a process of months or weeks, depending on which tradition you are following in creating it, you feed it blood or you feed it other things. And those of you more traditionally witchcraft aligned, this is what I was getting to, is that when you feed it the blood, you are feeding it your life force. So it is not only a separate spirit, but also like a piece of you. So depending on which, because there's two like main, I don't know how to word it, but either you can view it as an extension of yourself or as a separate spirit that exists in your lineage, the way like a descendant or an ancestor, something like that.
No, 1,000%. Yeah. I find that it like really depends for me when I'm creating these spirits, like their form, function, and how they work. This is where like lines kind of blur too of like a servitor, and other types of spirits that are born. And I won't get into defining it. That'll be between you and your practice. Whether you have like a servitor is like a separate concept or the same concept, because with the servitor too, it is like born of your consciousness. It is an extension of your consciousness. And then with like birthing spirits, they're an extension of you as well through direct tie, whether that's like through your blood, your spit, other kind of concepts. There is different ways of doing that. Like what is the breath of life in the spirit, right? Where did the breath of life come from, into your spirit that you are birthing, or creating? Then it also depends, like, okay, is this a type of spirit that'll be around for a long time? Is it just going to do what it needs to and dissipate? Is it going to be something that I can call forth at a certain time? Does it work more like a, what is it called? A Horcrux from Harry Potter, um, where it's like a reset point for yourself, right? So instead of it being more of a separate spirit, it is a part of you. So that way, if something happens, you can go back to that kind of restart point. Right? So, like, let's say that you have no curses, you have no jinxes, no hexes, and you create a spirit of yourself, and use that as a Horcrux and put that somewhere. And then if somebody really tries to fuck your shit up, like really bad, like this is like a last resort. You go to this Horcrux kind of spirit that you created and devour it, and now you've been reset back to that point where you had no curses, you had no jinxes, you had no bindings, you had no crossings, and you are resetting, basically respawn point, if you will. And you might make that a ritual, to not to get too into it, but like if you were to do that, I would recommend ritually killing yourself, metaphorically, and while you devour the spirit. So it's like, as this current me who is cursed dies, and I devour this spirit that I created, I now take on the form of the spirit, and the old me who was cursed is dead, and the version of me that's come back is this Horcrux reset point. So now I can be cleansed of it.
Lydian, please cut this. Don't kill yourself.
Right.
But kill yourself.
Actually, keep that, please. Don't kill yourself, but kill yourself is very, honestly, okay, listen, I won't give you a lot of details of my practice a lot. It might seem like I do, but that is honestly fairly common in my practice, is killing yourself, but not really. And yeah, so the amount of times I've taken a blade and been like, this is it, and it's actually just the ritual that I'm doing is great. My partner has definitely had to just get used to the fact that I'm around a blade at vital points of my body in ritual a lot. There was actually one point where I did a public ritual, and my fellow practitioner who was doing it with me acted as high priestess and ritually, metaphorically slit my throat open and brought me back from the dead. And it was a moment of spirit possession, actually. Yeah, it was a really great point in which there was a lot of dancing and spinning and like crazy movements as the spirit took control and did what it needed to for the event that we were at. But I digress. Yeah, don't actually kill yourself, please. Um, Ritually, metaphorically, not really. Yeah.
It's like when we were talking about the monstrous ritual cannibalism. Like, don't eat people, but like, eat people.
Eat the rich.
Eat the
Uh,
rich.
yeah, no, that's like a really good point too. Like, is when remembering that people are also spirits, right? So the things that you do to spirits you create, to pre-existing spirits, also applies to people, right? This is why we will take an item and baptize it in the name of somebody, because you're like taking that spirit of them and utilizing it in various ways. You can do various different practices. Honestly, I mean, it really depends on your practice, your tradition, your lineage, what you've been taught, what you've figured out through experimentation. I think that is a good point to refer to, because I feel like um, listeners don't think that like we just know everything off the top of our head immediately, but at least I know Len does. So if you have questions, ask Len. But
I know everything.
it's because Len can research anything and gather any information, so they know everything. But with that being said, working spirits too can really be helpful. Like for example, if we're talking about not knowing something, right? Work with spirits that do know something. Work with spirits that can get information, that can get knowledge, or spirits that will teach you, right? Like the amount of times I've been in the middle of a work and my spirit will be like, no, don't do that, do this, is like really important in my practice, and its adaptability as well, because I didn't have a teacher. My teachers have been spirits, my teachers have been ancestors, my teachers have been these lessons that I've learned in those regards. Yeah, so spirits. These we are also spirits. I love a smooth transition. Um, so as spirits, right? Like our listeners in the Patreon have access to at a certain tier a sigil, for example, of me, right? And so if you are going to call on Sebastian, the sorcerer, there are different incarnations of me, if you will, different parts of my spirit, different um, epithets, if you will, that you can utilize for various things, right? So, like, are you calling on Sebastian, the sorcerer? Are you calling on me as the part of me who worked medical magic, so for healing and stuff like that? Are you calling on me for protection? Are you calling on me to work baneful work? But it's not literally like I don't just suddenly collapse over and pass out and faint and because somebody summoned me somewhere. No, it's a right. I'm just in the
Oh, it doesn't
middle.
happen that way for you?
Len, if that's the way it works for you, we need to talk. But if, for example, right, like let's say a listener is feeling that they are being attacked by somebody spiritually, and they use my sigil as a form of warding or to call on me for protection, it's not my soul that's housed directly in the body that is fully controlling my body. It is an aspect of my soul. For me, it would be like well, it depends on which part of me they're calling and where that's housed, but like different things like that, right? But like it is part of me, so I will be aware that something's happening, but it's also not me directly, right? So it's not like, again, like I'm not fully leaving my body and being there. It's just a part of me, a fragment, if you will. Not that it's any weaker than the totality, but it's like, okay, you're specifically calling on the wrathful version of me, which is going to be for protection and like fucking shit up. Versus like if you were to call on the healing version of me, like while there might be wrathful stuff there, it's not going to be as wrathful as if you called on the protector version, right? So like um, one of the ways that you could do that is through like this incantation that I will actually put you in uh, the Patreon. So listeners, if you're wanting that to make it easier, you're gonna have to actually go sign up. But it's something that I've used and I've had friends use and other clients use to call on a part of my spirit. And I've given that permission to them directly. So that way they can do that. That's something that can be done. You know, it's the same kind of way that like um, people call on like more recent dead people as like folk saints to work for them in various ways. Like I think a really popular one I think is like Anthony Bourdain. People will call on them, or like you can call on other like more famous people for depending on what you're doing. So like if you work with like animals or like a vet, you know, you might call on what's his name, Steve Irwin.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might call on them, right, and work their spirit, right? You're not probably summoning their spirit in its totality, but you're probably calling forth a part of that spirit, right? The part that is well known as working with animals and being really well, knowing how to work with them really well. And he might come to you and show you like ways to work with these animals because they are also spirits, and how to work with them as a vet, right? Or even as like a practitioner, like you can call them to be like, okay, I work with canine spirits. What can I do to blah blah blah? I work with avian spirits like birds. Or I want to work with a category, right? So, like, I'm sure Dead Steve Irwin knows more about elemental associations with certain animals than he did when he was alive. But those are things to take into consideration as well when we're talking like spirits, right? Spirits of people, living or dead, right? Working with spirits that used to be human and are no longer human is something else, right? If we're working plants, this is something to talk to them about too, because plants are different. And then speaking of talking to spirits, realizing this is so important, realizing that not all spirits talk the same is so important. The amount of conversations I've missed out on because I thought they would talk to me the way that we're conversating is insane. And then realizing years later, like, oh, they were talking in ideas.
Learning how to communicate with spirits is a learning curve. There is a learning curve to that. Once you get it, everything clicks into place, though.
So much easier once that, like, literally you'll feel it click and you're like, oh, I get it now. I get it now. Like when a spirit starts talking to you in shapes and you're like, huh?
What the fuck does that mean? Yeah.
What imagery or concepts and ideas, or like the amount of times I'm like, wait, that wasn't my thought, but it also is my thought. But now you're like kind of having this weird dialogue through the concept of thinking with the spirit
Where did that come from?
is an experience in and of itself. You do get the, and then sometimes they'll just actually speak, and you're just like, I don't know this language. You know, the concept of like, oh well, like um, if you were to ask an angel that you summon forth like its actual name and how to say it, the angel's going to be like, well, do you have like 12 vocal cords? No, then,
Yeah.
then you can't pronounce my name. Is like something to take into consideration too. Like, is a plant going to be able to talk to you the same way something that used to have vocal cords will, right? Because like we do know plants communicate
Can
with
you
each
sing?
other,
Yeah.
but it's not the same way we do.
Can you sing 4-part harmony by yourself? Like, can you do that?
Exactly. So it's very it is a learning curve, and learning to be like, okay, what is maybe sometimes what you can do with the spirit that you're working with is be like, okay, what is a medium of communication that we both can make sense with each other, right? So like what is the easiest way to communicate? So that's like one thing that I do when I'm working with spirits. Is like one of the first thing I do besides like the obvious is like, hi, thank you, blah blah blah, thank you for coming, blah blah blah, here's what we're doing. Is like, okay, look, we're building a relationship. What is the easiest way for us to communicate? Tell me that right now. So that way we can do that easier. What's a symbol that will make it easier for us to communicate? what is a hand like sign that will be easier to communicate with, right? Like a recent spirit gave me this one. Glenn, you will know what spirit I'm talking about. But it's this as the hand sign. And so this is one of the ways that I can call forth this spirit easier. This is one of the ways that I can ensure contact with this spirit, and really make sure that we're kind of on the same page. Because sometimes what's happening is like, imagine two walkie talkies, right? Sometimes if you're close enough in frequency, you can still hear each other, but what you want is to be on the exact same one, so it's clear communication across the board, right? And that's basically what you're trying to do when you're working with spirits, is like, okay, this spirit might be on frequency, let's just go simple, like 1, and I'm on frequency 3. And no, listeners, a higher and lower frequency does not mean positive or negative. um, but what you're trying to do is like, okay, well, I can't get to 1, but I can get to 2. And I know that spirit can't get to 3, but they can get to 2. So we'll both click to 2, and that way we can communicate really easy.
Interesting. But yes. Yeah. The walkie-talkie thing makes sense. Yeah. When you mentioned the hand sign thing, I was like, because I typically work with like animal spirits, so I'm like, well, how would that work? And I'm thinking of like the shadow puppet animals. Um, and then I don't know if you've like, my cousin can probably hear me because he's in the other room. But what came to mind was Chainsaw Man. Have you seen Chainsaw Man?
I have seen Chainsaw Man, but what you need to watch, if this is what you're going to reference, is Jujutsu Kaisen.
And I'm watching that. I'm thinking of Aki from Chainsaw Man with the dog. Kon.
Kon. Speaking
Yes.
of which, I'll actually put a video, listeners, on our Patreon, because I did that with my dog, with a treat, and I did Kon, and it was like perfect.
Yes, I remember you sharing that. That's so awesome.
So I'm gonna share that because it was so good. But yeah, no, like one of the reasons why I love Jujutsu Kaisen, besides like the art and the story, is that like, as a person who used to practice Taoist sorcery, I know there's like a difference because it is like Japanese focused, but there's a lot of Buddhist relation to oh my god, JJK. And so like, yeah, so if you watch the show, actually, speaking of animal puppets, Megumi, this isn't a secret, so it's not really a spoiler. Megumi uses the animal puppets to summon forth like the spirits, the Shikigami. And so like he will do like the elephant one, and like a elephant will appear because his technique focuses on like shadows, right? So like the whole concept there. But yeah, like for example, like, yeah, would it be like the cone to like summon forth a fox, right? And like that would definitely be something. Different types of like mudras are important in like Taoist Buddhist practice, right? So if I'm performing different work for different things, right? Like if I'm giving offering, this one is a really important one. I know you can't see, listeners, apologies, but using different mudras specifically for offering this, the lotus, because it's like the offering of the lotus is one I've used before and been told to use in various regards, you know, if I'm doing different things. That's why, actually, listeners, a little media reference. If you've watched the horror movie Incantation, that's why their mudra is like this. It's because it's the lotus reverse, and it's meant to be like blessings, and gathering blessings and stuff like that. But when you reverse it, it's like putting curses. So it's like a kind of an inversion of the mudra. But like, yeah, like what's that association with spirit, right? Like, okay, what spirit can I do for this? Can you also bind spirits to that? Yes. So I will share something that is something that I wouldn't typically share with listeners, but I have bound a certain spirit from a certain grimoire with a certain hand symbol and their chant, which actually I will get into details of it, specifically what grimoire and what spirit, in the post show for our listeners who will join us there. But yeah, so that is something definitely. I know we've kind of talked about like spirits, and it kind of took its own thing, listeners, but that's kind of the case with spirits. Is like, ironically enough, is like we were like, we're gonna talk about spirits, this and this, and then it kind of just takes its own, like, it takes a life of its own, and does what it needs to. And so hopefully we got some sort of message across that was necessary for you all to kind of be on a similar understanding of spirits with us as we continue to talk about them, because honestly, we talk about them a lot. Like, it's something that we will continue to talk about a lot, because they are super important in the practice in all their different regards and aspects. But I think that we have a show.
Yeah. So to wrap this up in a little bow, spirits. Yes. I I had a train of thought, but as soon as I was like, oh, I should make a joke, it fucked. You can read all you can about a spirit, but you won't know how to engage with or communicate with it until you actually try. So you can read all this knowledge about a spirit, but it means nothing until you've actually tried to speak with them.
No, literally. Like, if you take a famous spirit, for example, from a grimoire, and you're like, oh, well, everybody says this, everybody says that about spirit, everyone on Reddit says this about this spirit, everyone on Witch Talk says blah, 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 and then you summon the spirit and it works completely different, that's because it's not going to be the same for you as the way there'll be some archetypal, like, bigger picture things that'll be kind of similar. But, like, for example, if I summon a water spirit and Len tries to summon the same water spirit, it's not going to be exactly the same in the regard of, like, okay, what lens is Len doing it versus the lens that I'm doing it through? What is the method of summoning that's going to be different? What is the purpose? Because a purpose with spirit can really change its form, function, concept, idea. You know, the thing is that the spirit is not bound to a physical form, usually. Usually. And so it's much more free flowing because it is on that different plane of existence that has room for more adaptability versus us who might be like in a physical body. I'm not saying that we can't shapeshift, because practitioners, that's kind of the gift of being a practitioner, is that shapeshifting. It's a gift that we can do as practitioners. That's why we as people we are spirits, is because we can shapeshift. But it's much easier for a disembodied spirit to just do that naturally versus us who might have to take an extra step.
Yeah, and we need to get into this more in the post show, so let's wrap it up here.
Yeah, absolutely.
This has been the Ember Report, where resistance is witchy and spells are not optional. I'm Len, the Witch of the Crossroads.
I'm Sebastian, the Sorcerer of Annihilation. If today's fire stirred something in you, share it, cast it wide.
If you'd like to linger a while, there's always tea on the stove, a place in the resistance, and room at our table.
We'll be carrying this ember over to Ashes and Sparks, our Patreon after show, for an extended conversation. You can find that at patreon.com/The Ember Report, where for as little as $1 you can get access to our after show and Discord server. Don't forget to check us out on Instagram at The Ember Report. You can also find us on Instagram at The Ember Report.
At this time, we would like to name our Patreon supporters. Sabrina Owens Newcraft and Pablo Rodriguez, thank you so much for your support. It keeps us going. Until next time, may our rage spark resistance.
May our grief become fire. And may our magic be sharp and unrepentant.
The lantern is lit.
You're still out there.
And so are we.